Hi class, in this recording we're going to focus on the hormones of the pancreas, in particular the hormones that are going to control our blood sugar concentrations. Now within the pancreas, it's worth emphasizing that the pancreas is a two-in-one organ. There are going to be both endocrine and exocrine functions of our pancreas. The pancreas looks kind of like a comma on its side. It's going to be located directly inferior to the stomach and will drain into the duodenum or duodenum of the small intestine. The functions that make secretions into the intestine are the exocrine functions. Those are going to be secretions that eventually leave the body. However, within the pancreas, if we look at this photomicrograph, we're going to have regions within the histology or within the pancreas of cells that are distinctly different from the surrounding tissue type. We call those islands of cells pancreatic islets. And within pancreatic islets, we have alpha, beta, and delta cells. Three different cell types within these pancreatic islets. And as we look at the photomicrograph, it's difficult to differentiate these cell types without special contrasting stains that are protein specific. The first hormone that we're going to talk about is going to be secreted by the A or alpha cells. This hormone is going to be glucagon. Glucagon is a hormone that's primarily going to raise blood sugar. So when we think glucagon, this is a hormone that's going to act on the glycogen. Glucagon will travel to the liver, and within the liver, it's going to stimulate a couple processes. It will stimulate gluconeogenesis, the making of new glucose from proteins and lipids. It's also going to stimulate glycogen lysis, the cleavage or breaking lysis of glycogen. So it'll stimulate two processes, gluconeogenesis and glycogen lysis. These two processes are both going to increase blood sugar concentrations, will raise blood glucose levels. Adipose tissue will also respond to glucagon. In particular, in response to glucagon, we'll have an increase of fat catabolism. If you don't remember, catabolism is the chemical breakdown of a bigger molecule into a smaller molecule. So when we say fat catabolism, we're going to take a triglyceride and break it apart into fatty acids and glycerol subunits. Glucagon is also going to act by raising amino acid levels in the blood. This is going to cause our body to have more amino acid absorption and provides cells in our body, in particular the liver, raw materials, raw amino acids that can be converted to glucose via gluconeogenesis. The next hormone of the pancreas is insulin, and this is going to be secreted by the beta cell types. Insulin is a hormone that is the opposite of glucagon. It is going to lower blood glucose levels. And as we're looking at this insulin, which lowers blood glucose levels, we'll primarily see an increase in insulin immediately after a meal, whereas with glucagon, it's going to be before meals. As insulin gets into the body, ultimately lowers the blood glucose levels, and it does this a couple different ways. First, within the liver, it's going to promote the synthesis of glycogen. It's also going to promote the development of fat and proteins. It's going to take these fuel sources that we can use quickly in the bloodstream and suppress the use of them. Now, as we look at the brain, liver, and kidneys and red blood cells, these cells are going to constantly be absorbing insulin or glucose. These are cell types that are very glucose hungry, very glucose dependent. But other tissues, in order for them to function, they will need some insulin to absorb some glucose. Now, if we don't have enough insulin in our body, if we have some kind of an insufficiency or inaction of insulin, we'll have a condition known as diabetes mellitus set in. This is a form of diabetes when there's going to be excessively high blood sugar, blood glucose concentrations, and a key characteristic of it is going to be the sweet tasting urine associated with that, or sugary urine that's being produced by the patients that have this condition. The next hormone we're going to talk about is somatostatin. And as we look at somatostatin, it's released by the delta cells. And as we look at somatostatin, it's going to partially suppress secretion of both glucagon and insulin, partially suppress the activity of both the alpha and beta cell types within the pancreatic islets. So in terms of what somatostatin does for us, it inhibits nutrient digestion and absorption and promotes absorption of nutrients. So what does this mean? It means that it's going to cause our body to slow down in terms of its digestive activities, so that some nutrients will stay in our digestive tract longer to be further digested. And being further digested, we're going to have overall increased absorption of nutrients because those nutrients have been broken down into smaller pieces through catabolic digestive processes. Individuals that have very high blood glucose concentrations can sometimes have elevated somatostatin. If we have a hyperglycemic hormone, these are hormones that are going to raise blood glucose concentrations. Some hormones from other glands are going to be involved in this process. We've already talked about two of them with epinephrine and cortisol. Other hormones that are going to raise blood glucose concentrations include growth hormone and glucagon. So we've actually talked about all of these, at least in some fashion, throughout our Chapter 17 discussion. We also have some hypoglycemic hormones. Hypo means too lower. Glycemic refers to the amount of sugar in the bloodstream. The primary hypoglycemic hormone in our body is insulin. And somatostatin is going to interact with all of these hormones, partially altering our body's response and activity to all of these hormones. The main thing that I want to emphasize has been underlined and bolded for you already. Let me shift colors for you. When we think of somatostatin, I want you to think of a hormone which keeps stuff in the digestive tract, nutrients and absorption, and makes it so that ultimately it gets processed more and will be absorbed more readily within our bodies. That's all we have for this discussion on the hormones of the pancreatic islets. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them on the class discussion board or shoot me an email. And as always, happy studies.